Okay.
So we're joined all the way from Houston, Texas, by my friend Brie Olootu, senior recruiting expert, recruited for so many people now with Moss Adams University, former recruiter with Microsoft, Capital One, you name it. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're recording this for our computer science engineering class. I've got a room full here with me at Velma Jackson High School. We're
Okay.
recording this for all of our friends in Madison County schools, including my good friend Angela Jordan over at Shirley Simmons Middle School and my buddies Victoria Kirksey and Angela Reed at Old Town Middle School. So thank you so much for taking some time for us today.
Awesome. Yes, of course. Thanks for having me.
Now, obviously, we're going to get into what all you do because this is kind of a different direction we've gone from our guests in the past. But it's so important to talk about professional development and what these companies are looking for. But let's give us a little background because you did go to Texas A&M. This is SEC country. I've got my LSU on. We got a bunch of Ole Miss and Mississippi State fans as well. But you did go to Texas A&M,
Nice.
one of the largest universities in the country. So just tell us about your college experience and everything you did there at A&M.
Yeah. Um, I always tell people that Texas A&M was probably like the best 4 years of my life. I loved it. I made so many friendships, people that I still keep in contact with today. In college, gosh, I took involvement to another level. I was involved in Fish Aids, which was a student government organization. So that was really cool to be able to interact with our student body president. I was on the Conference of Student Government Affairs, COSGA. I was a part of Big Event, which is our largest Serve Day project that kind of takes over College Station. Um, I was a fish camp co-chair. Fish camp is our like 3 day, 2 night orientation that we use to welcome incoming freshmen. So we do cheers, we build community, lots of team building, and then there's like some it's networking, but you also attend some kind of like sessions on like this is how you're going to navigate your first year as a freshman at A&M. You're going to be on a campus with over 50,000 people here, so get involved. That's the best way for you to meet people. Like things to kind of help you feel more at ease about making that transition. And then I was an impact co-chair, which is basically it was a Christian version of Fish Camp. So essentially, I guided a group of counselors to plan our 3 day, 2 night kind of weekend event so that students could build community with the same faith. So, Bible studies, devotionals, games. We heard from different pastors that came in and spoke as well. And so that was also really cool so that you can build your foundation early without losing your faith when you go to college. I was a part of a women's service and leadership organization, Maggie's. That was really fun. I still keep in contact with some of those women as well. Um, I think that's it. I worked at a coffee shop for a day. I quit. That I love coffee, but like making other people's coffee, I was like, yeah, this is not for me. Oh, and I was super, super involved in my church. I was a worship leader, Bible study leader. I mean, spring break, I was on mission trips. And so, but yeah, I had the best 4 years of my life. I mean, I did spoken word. I was introduced to that and yeah, super transformative. So, loved my time at A&M and then transitioned to Houston in 2012. And it was through Maggie's. Several of the girls were already teaching at a public charter school called Yes Prep. And that's kind of how I ended up there.
Well, see, I'm glad you mentioned all that because we have several kids that are already starting to think about college. And what we always say is, look, we don't tell anybody where to go, what to major in, but we have a lot of great schools in
Hmm.
Mississippi. We got a lot in the South, HBCUs, PWIs, community
Absolutely.
college. No matter where you go to school, no matter what you major in, the key is not just good grades. Because I have
Hmm.
kids all the time that say, I'm just going to go to class and go to my dorm room. Well, you just wasted a lot of time and money because it is not just
Yep.
about your academics. You've got to network. People have got to know who you are. You've got to get comfortable speaking in groups. You've got to get comfortable being in different settings. You've got to learn to work with people with different backgrounds. And the old adage is always, it's not what you know, it's who you know. I always take it one step farther. It's not what you
Yep.
know, it's not who you know, it's who knows you. So getting the network
Yep.
out there and getting involved in as many things as you can. And you mentioned all the great things at Texas A&M. Even if you go to a small school, find something that's going to fit your
Yep.
major, find something that's going to fit your interest. There's
Absolutely.
if you go to a PWI, I know at LSU there was a very large black student union. If you go to a PWI, that things like NSBE, if you go to an
Yep,
HBCU, there's so many great community service
absolutely.
organizations. So all of that not only builds your network, it builds your resume. So I cannot stress that enough to
Yep,
everybody that wants to go to college, no matter where you go. You just heard somebody that did a
yep.
lot of things, and I would venture to say that paid just as much off as it did your academics.
Yeah, I was a part. I mean, I know I was a part of a number of things. I was just thinking off the dome, but even hearing you speak now, I'm like, I was a part of two leadership conferences. So freshman year, there was one called Gilbert Leadership Conference, and then my sophomore year, I went to Abbott Family Leadership Conference, and these were competitive conferences. You had to apply, group panel interviews. You had to submit an application. But like you said, it was. I networked with not only people within A&M, but they also connected us to like high profile leaders within the Aggie community, that are all over. And one of the things that stood out to me was one of the guys was like, my GPA sucked. And he was like, but I'm successful. And he was like, and it's because of my network. And I'm sure y'all have heard the expression like your network is your net worth. And so I took that I ran with that. So I started really volunteering, being involved in different organizations, and using my network. And honestly, every job that I've had was through my network. And so, I mean, I've experienced two layoffs. Like I was laid off in 2023 and I was laid off in 2024. I was able to bounce back because of my network. And
That's
so I
awesome.
think if you have good people around you, if you have a solid network, you won't fail. I mean, of course you're always going to hit a bump in the road. I'm not here to say, "Oh my God, life's easy," because it's not. Life is hard. Adulting is hard. But if you have a good community, that makes a heck of a difference. And so but yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Network is everything. How I landed a job at Capital One was my network. How I landed a job at Microsoft after a layoff, it was my network. How I'm here at Moss Adams, that was actually a cold reach out on LinkedIn, but I did a post letting people know, hey, I'm laid off. These are the type of opportunities and roles that I'm interested in. And people commented and reshared that post. And then a recruiter reached out to me in my DMs. And so if you don't have LinkedIn, great. I mean, like I'm on LinkedIn all the time, multiple times a day. I do a lot of posts. I'm very active, but like that's a good place too for you to like all the people that y'all are getting to hear from, connect with them on LinkedIn because years down the road, you can connect with them on LinkedIn and you can chat with them and they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, that's so awesome to hear that you've graduated from X university," or "Oh, that you're interested in working at this company." It's simple. Even if it's just wishing happy birthday. I just want to say like don't make networking hard. Be genuine, like if you remember something about someone, that's an easy way to network. So like even if it's just like, oh, I saw that you posted about your dog, I was thinking about getting one. I know that sounds silly, but though that's an opportunity to network. I'm just trying to show y'all how simple it can be. It doesn't have to be hard.
Yeah, and just to give an example of how easy it is to get lost in the shuffle, I graduated from high school with
Yeah.
around 500 students, and then I went to the University of Southern Mississippi, which is not near as big as Texas A&M, but it's still a large school. And I tell the story
Yeah.
all the time. Nobody believes me, but I swear this is 100% true. I was in a class in college with around 400 people, and there was literally one of my classmates from high school that I had known my entire life in the class. I did not know he was in there until the last day. And it is that
Oh,
easy to get
wow.
lost in the shuffle. Yes. And, that's why you can't just be a fly on the wall. You can't just be
Yep.
somebody that goes to class and nothing else. You've got to get out there and be seen. Now, in this class, so
Yep.
like I said, this is a little bit different direction. We've taught with multiple tech experts. We've taught with AI entrepreneurs. We've taught with computer programmers. We've taught with engineers. And you don't do any of that. However, you have worked with tech and worked with tech
Mhm.
companies. Worked at Microsoft. You worked on the tech side of Capital One. I know now at Moss Adams. Moss Adams focuses on a lot of cutting edge technology and preparing people for those
Mhm.
jobs. So what you did,
Yeah.
you were the person seeing the resumes. You were the person reaching out and saying, "Look, you'd be a great fit." So as somebody that has spent so many years recruiting people with these skills that we have talked about, whether they go to college or they don't go to college, because look, we're not going to lie. We've had tech people tell us our kids out of their own mouth. I don't care if you went to college or not. I want you to have the certification. So that
Yep.
is kind of a direction the field has taken, but at the same time, you still got to have the
Hmm.
network. You've got to have the certifications. You've got to have the interview skills. You've got to be able to walk in a
Hmm.
room and introduce yourself. You've got to be able to sell yourself, and you've got to be have a resume that makes sense. So you've seen
Yep.
thousands of resumes, you've seen thousands of applications. So as somebody that has spent so long in that area for tech companies, what are some things that you have seen and things that you think kids need to really start mastering now before they get to that point?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I might have you might have to repeat it if I jump off ship. I would say first thing I always notice, I notice like formatting. I notice like grammar and punctuation. And those things seem small, but in the grand scheme of things, they're actually pretty big when you're presenting these things to hiring managers because they can chalk that up to the attention to details not there. I would also say, even though, yes, we are seeing a shift from like going to college and some people are just getting certifications, there are still some hiring managers that do look at GPA. And I would say if your GPA is not above like I don't want to give a number, but I would say you want to make sure that your GPA is solid. Um, Networking will get you far, absolutely, but I would say like your first job or two out of college, your GPA will be looked at. And it can sometimes be stacked against other people. So sorry if you hear the dogs in the background. I apologize for that. Another thing I would say is if your GPA is lower, you can talk about a recruiter might ask, "Hey, I noticed that your GPA was, maybe a 2.5 or 2.7, whatever. What contributed to that?" Or and you can use that opportunity to share. Like, I was working full time. Maybe I lost someone important to me, whatever that is, to kind of add some color to that. But ultimately, that's not the recruiter's decision, right? They can advocate for you, but ultimately, the hiring manager would make that call. You also want to include any like leadership activities that you're a part of or any volunteer um, organizations that you're a part of, skills sections, skills. I would say when you're younger, you can include the skills section. Now that I'm older, I'm not including a skills section. I'm more so including like technology that I utilize often. Sorry, one second. Let me see if I can get this. To get them quiet. Right. Still going. Um, any achievements such as like academic honors or scholarship opportunities that you're a part of, or business projects that you've worked on in school. I've also seen a lot of like relevant coursework. Those are things that I would say help you like stand apart. But just because you have all of that on the paper, that doesn't make you the best candidate. And what I mean by that is if you cannot communicate coherently or concisely, or even with a level of passion, right? You're not monotone. Those are things that like can separate you from being like here to here. So I can look at this, I can look at two resumes that are the exact same, but when I have the conversation with the candidates, that is what can add color, and can kind of change the game. Mentors, mentors, mentors. I highly recommend getting a mentor. And as you get older, you'll hear people say you need a mentor and then you need a sponsor. But I would say right now, where you are in your like life, get a mentor. Start asking those questions of like, hey, how did you get to where you are today? Am I, you can ask, am I on the right track? Or here are some of the things that I'm working on. Whatever it is that you want to know about, start asking those questions now. When you get older, when you're in the career workplace, you'll still have mentors and then you'll have people that'll sponsor you. And what a sponsor is just somebody who will say your name in rooms to help you with that next opportunity, whether it's a promotion, whether it's working on a project that helps you get more visibility into senior leadership. But right now in your career, think about mentors. And then the other thing that I would say is career development. It's a journey, but ask a lot of questions and be open. Be open to feedback, right? Like even me, I've been recruiting for 9 years. And I've switched different industries, right? I went from education, nonprofit. I've went from fintech, banking. I've gone to big tech, and now I'm in the public accounting industry. So no, I'm not, even though I have 9 years of recruiting experience, I'm not walking in like a know-it-all. And I'm not walking in about like, oh, this is the way that we do things. You still want to learn the way the company does things. And even though it may not be perfect or it may be different than what you're accustomed to, you're still learning. You're still taking it all in. And maybe a year later, you can start asking more questions and help change processes. But initially, I'm just learning. I'm just taking it in and I'm sitting back and I'm asking questions. I'm learning from people who have sat in this seat before me, who've been here for, 12 years, 16 years, 8 years, whatever. And I'm learning from them. And then I'm figuring out, okay, so that's how you do it. How can I add Brie to this? What makes this more authentic to me? And definitely be your authentic self. I mean, learn. I mean, I'm not going to show up, like as soon as I wake up and have my bonnet on, right? Like I'm not doing that at work, but be your authentic self. Like that's what makes you unique. That's what makes you different. That's what makes you cool. Like, I mean, I like my seventh graders when I used to be a teacher were always like, you are the way you act with us, you act with your friends, like you're goofy like this. I'm like, yes. And I'm still like this, 12 years later. But I think that's what makes life fun. So, yeah, I think those are some of the things that initially come to mind. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned a few of those things because I have high school students tell me all the time, well, I haven't had a job. Well, we have several programs that they can get certifications in high school once they
Oh,
we
wow.
have on-campus digital media academies. We have an IT program, a robotics and engineering program that they can get certifications in high school, and that can be on there. But I just cringe all the time when I hear a tech person say, "Well, I did all this work, but I can't find a job." Well, a lot of the times, now not all the time, but a lot of the times because that person isn't interviewing well. That person isn't writing a good resume.
Hmm.
Because, like you just said, there's times where you see a resume and it never even gets to the hiring manager because you toss it out. If people can't spell,
Yep.
if people can't organize, and then the other thing that just, as somebody, and sometimes I wouldn't have believed this if I hadn't seen it because you have times where people will have the experience and they walk into a job and then have no idea what the job is they're interviewing for. Because you talked about get to know what the companies do.
Oh, yeah.
Because and then
Yeah.
even little stuff. And this is when I was at LSU. And and again, I swear this is 100% true. I was at the front desk of our building and this woman walked in and said, "Hey, I have an interview." And I said, "Okay, great." Because we had a couple positions open. And I was like, "Well, who's your interview with?" This woman looked at me right in the face and said, "Hold on, let me go check in the car." So when she walked in the room, she didn't even know who she was supposed to meet with. And it was and she'd already had who she was supposed to ask for on there. And then when you walk into an interview and they ask, "Do you have any questions?" and you're like, "No." I tell kids from the time they're in ninth grade to the time they graduate from high school, in an interview, if they ask you, "Do you have questions?" the answer is never, ever no. Have something generic. At least
Yep.
look like you've done some research. Know about the company. At least read the
Yep.
job description and be able to
Yes.
say, "Look,
Yes.
I worked on this project. Here's some things I did with it. I've learned this language. Here's some of my programming I did with it. You guys are looking
Hmm.
for guys that can design this. I learned HTML in high school and look at some of the websites I designed." It is amazing how much
Yep.
more you can move to the front of the line with just those simple things.
Absolutely. And I mean, in this day and age, y'all have access to so much technology. You also have Chat GPT, you have AI. I mean, I even used those tools when Copilot. I used all those tools when I was going through my job hunt, whether it was editing my resume, right? And tailoring it to a specific job. Or I would type in the LinkedIn profile of the person I was interviewing with and the company that I was interviewing with, and because Chat GPT is a prompt engineer. That's all it is. So I'm giving it a prompt and you perfect it. So I would tell it, hey, I have an interview tomorrow with this person, send the link profile with this company, their senior leader. What type of questions can I ask them? Hey, you can type in the job description into Chat GPT and you can say, what kind of questions will they ask me in the interview? Is it 100% bulletproof? Absolutely not. But does it give you a good idea of what questions might come your way? Absolutely. Does it give you a handful of questions that you can ask a senior leader or hiring manager? Yes. Y'all have so much like tech at your fingertips that if you can utilize it. I don't personally, but AI will take over, right? Some people, that's a big thing that you're
We've
going
been
to hear
talking
about.
about
But
it
I
all
do
year.
also believe, yeah, but I also believe that you can work with it to fine tune, your career development experience because they have access to so much. Like it's awesome. So I would definitely use those resources available to you. And even when you get in college, I mean, utilize your career services team to edit your resume. I mean, those are some top tier professionals that you all will have access to, if you choose to go to college, right? But um, I can't tell you how amazing the career services teams are, how quick they are to provide you with feedback, the network that they have with recruiters and other companies. And it's literally right there on your college campus, and you get it you get it because you're paying for it. So
Yeah.
utilize, and they're always hosting different professional development workshops. They're happy to review the resume, any cover letters. Even if you decide you want to go to graduate school and you want somebody to review, can't remember what it's called, but you have to write some kind of essay. They'll review that for you too. And so definitely utilize that. And then another good rule of thumb that I look at too as a recruiter, and you will hear contradicting things from different recruiters. You will. Some recruiters love cover letters. Some of us don't care for them. And that will be an argument until I don't know when, but it's been an argument for since I've been in recruiting. But when I look at resumes, I think you can, 10 years to a page. That's all I need. 10 years. You don't need 6, 7, 8 pages of resume. And many of you, you're in high school, one page. It should literally just be the front. So those are different things too that we look at as recruiters. I should be able to look at your resume quickly, get an understanding of what it is that you do, and keep it moving. And it should be high impact, right? Like there should be some data points in there. So I'm able to see because if I'm not hopping on the phone with you, I need to see your impact. So if you're saying, I led if there's a difference between saying led weekly presentations versus led weekly presentations to a group of 300 people. Wow, that's impactful, and now I can see like, okay, wow, this person would be great to do a learning and development training for our organization. Our organization only has 100 people, so those are different things to think about.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that because that's what I wanted to talk about next when it comes to how you sell yourself. Because I just cringe too when a student gives me a resume, and this is could be a great student, and they put on there, I am good at Python. I am good at JavaScript.
Mm,
Good according to who? So that's
yeah.
why you like I said, I've used whatever program for X amount of years. I created X amount of
Yep.
X amount of projects using XYZ program. I got XYZ certification. Things that are specific are
Hmm.
are what recruiters want to see. Nothing that you ever put on a cover letter or resume should ever be subjective at all.
Yep. 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 Facts. You nailed it. You nailed it.
Now, if you want to be subjective, you can talk about that in the interview when they say, "Look, you say you worked with this. How do you feel? How do you feel your skill level is at that?" That's fine, but you're not putting that as a way to sell yourself because don't ever put I am good at this. Okay, good according to your
Yep.
friends or good according to an expert.
Yep.
So it's always something
Yep.
important to think about. Now, obviously,
Absolutely.
obviously we have to talk about because it's even before all the talk the last few months about it, I always thought it was important anyway because we have a lot of first generation Americans in our district. We have a
Mhm.
lot of we have a few that are dealing with disabilities. We have a lot of minorities. So this is especially in the tech space, there's a need for them to get there, and a lot of times they could be
Mhm.
the only one of one in a room. They could be the
Mhm.
only one of
Yeah.
one in a meeting, but their voices are needed, their talents are needed, their faces are needed. So, what are some things that they can do to make sure they aren't overlooked? Because obviously, once you get your foot in the door and you get in front of people, you've got a chance, and you've got to make the most of it. So, what are some ways that they can make themselves stand out with all these people applying for these jobs?
Yeah, that's funny that you said that because I was actually talking to some girlfriends last night who are Black women in tech, and they were talking about how it is tough being, the few, the only. And sometimes in meetings, like some words that they will say will sometimes be overlooked. But if another counterpart said the exact same thing, so and typically a male, it's like, oh wow, that was great. And it was like, but I literally just said that. Like I think like I mentioned earlier, the mentors and the sponsors, that's huge. That makes a difference. Another thing that I would add to is when you get into the tech space, many organizations have business resource groups or employee resource groups or affinity groups. They all have different names, but they all have the same thing. You're with like-minded people. Like, for example, I'm in our Black Business Resource Group at Moss Adams. At Microsoft, they have Blacks at Microsoft. At Capital One, they had a Black in Tech group. And these are all groups that you can be a part of. You can just join them. Some of them will host monthly meetings, monthly events, professional development opportunities where you get to hear from senior leaders. And that's where you can ask the questions about, hey, I'm struggling with this at work and could really use some feedback here. Or, hey, how did you navigate this situation? Or, hey, I really want to increase my visibility here with senior leadership. I'm looking to get promoted. Any tips that you can give me? And so there you're creating that community and that network to excel. Um, and your question was, sorry, can you repeat the question one more time?
Just what can they do to set themselves apart once they get in the room? Because they could be the only one of one in a room.
Honestly, you're, you will go in there and yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think. How do you set yourself apart? That is a really good question. The only thing that really comes to mind is being yourself because I know that like you're already gonna once you get the opportunity, you're already gonna go in and you're already gonna kill it. Um, and you're going to have consistent meetings with your you'll have consistent check-ins with your boss and so or your leader. You'll also have you'll also have conversations with skip levels, which is your boss's boss. So you will be able to share and showcase the work that you're doing on a regular basis. And so I think it's a matter of learning, like Greg had mentioned, like, sorry, like your teacher mentioned earlier, is learning how to sell yourself without like bragging, right? But being able to showcase your impact in the workplace. So maybe you did code using Python and it had this effect on whatever system, right? And you can showcase that. Like maybe it led to a 30% um, user efficiency or something like that, whatever. But you're able to showcase those things. So I would say learning how to sell yourself and your accomplishments when you're in your check-ins with your manager and when you're in those check-ins with your skip level. And even sometimes it's doing I believe in work life rhythm because work life balance does not exist because because life is you're doing this, okay? And so with work life rhythm there will be seasons where you can take on a little more willingly, right? Like you're not being voluntold, but you can take on a little more, and that is also another way to sometimes showcase impact, right? To show that you want more, that you're hungry for more. And sometimes it's stepping into leadership roles with organizations outside of your day-to-day work, right? As a software engineer or a project manager or customer success account manager, whatever. It could be, oh, I want to be the chair of our Black resource group. Or I want to serve as the community lead for our Asian affinity group, whatever. And those are things that gives you the exposure to kind of showcase like, yes, I'm ready for what's next. So I would say learning how to talk about yourself, sell yourself, stepping up in leadership, and then finding that mentor and sponsor that can coach you so that you can so you can achieve your goals because everybody's goals looks different, right? Like the goal that I have set for myself as somebody who's like 3 months in my role is completely different from my teammate who's been with the company for 9 years, right? We all have different goals.
Absolutely. Well, I do have a couple questions from the students. And I like this first one. This is Cortez Maxwell. He's in 10th grade. And he asked, going to such a large university, what was the hardest part of adjusting to college life?
So fun fact about me, my high school was my graduating class was 1,200 people. So my class sizes were pretty similar when I went to Texas A&M. Like my AP government class was very similar to like a college political science class at A&M. I picked A&M A because one of my guy friends told me to apply there. A&M wasn't even on my radar, but I was in top 10%. I was part of National Honor Society. And he had mentioned that there could be some scholarship opportunities as well for me being a minority. And I was also first generation as well. The first in my family to go to college, immediate and extended. And so what I can say is college was still hard. Just because I went to an amazing school, amazing high school, doesn't mean that like and it was in top 10%. College was still tough.
There you
Um, I
go.
had to I had to learn how to study in a different way than what I was accustomed to in high school. I had to learn how to time manage for real. Like, y'all heard how many organizations I was a part of. And so my grades did. I struggled initially because it was a culture shock, right? You have so much freedom than what you're used to because you're not at mom and dad's. I lived on campus. So I wasn't under my parents, telling me, all right, after basketball practice, you're going to do your homework. No, you had to kind of figure out your own rhythm and routine. But back to your initial question, I would say what helped me adjust to A&M was joining some student organizations. Don't take it to the extreme like I did, but join one or two freshman year because
Absolutely.
you really will meet so many awesome people. And they even have like if you wanted to be a part of like a first generation college group, they have that too. Like I was a part of it was called Aggie Access Learning Community. And I met some people who were also first generation, and we got to share like, man, this is tough. I'm homesick, or I'm the first in my family to go to college, and I'm overwhelmed. Like, maybe I want to drop out, whatever. But we got to have those like honest conversations, and I would honestly say like that community is what changed the game, and it helps you realize that you're not alone. And so don't fall into isolation. Really lean into your community, join those student orgs, because once you join those student orgs and you're walking on campus, no matter what size it is, you start to see familiar faces and you're like, okay. And then the university does begin to feel like home. Even to this day, when I go to A&M and I graduated in 2012, I still have friends that live there. And 13 years later, it still feels like home. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, and also if you want to get a campus job, I mean, it's a little money in your pocket, but that's
Mm.
a great way to meet people as well. Um, that's where I met the majority of my friends,
100%.
my campus job. So that's another thing
That's
to think about.
awesome.
This is
Yep.
Bryson Stevens. He's in ninth grade, and he asks, as a recruiter, what is the hardest part about selecting how someone would be the best candidate?
Wow. That is a good question. Um, what is the hardest part? For me, the hardest part is I build really great relationships with the people that I interact with. And so for me, the hardest part is having to say that we won't be moving forward with you. I still to this day hate that. It doesn't get easy after 9 years of doing this. Um, but the hardest part, mm, sometimes it's yeah, okay, I figured it out. The hardest part is figuring out what your hiring managers are looking for. So even I could be like, man, I think Greg has this, and this, and this. I could present Greg to the hiring manager, and the hiring manager's, yeah, I think Greg's solid, and there's always a but. And so it's trying to the hardest part is adapting and adjusting to the needs of your hiring manager and sometimes to the needs of the role. I would say that is the tricky part, is because sometimes your hiring manager is just looking for um, something different or maybe they want somebody that has more of a traditional career path, or maybe they want somebody that has more of a non-traditional career path, and so it's figuring out which candidates to present, which candidates to advocate for. And then there's sometimes where it's just like I gotta let this one go, like this candidate's just not it. But yeah, I would say that's probably the toughest part, is the needs of my hiring manager, and then the relationship aspect of recruiting, and the declines. I still to this day don't like it.
I feel you on that. Well, we're almost out of time, and we thank you so much for taking some time for us because this is kind of a different direction for this class, but I still think it's important. So as we wrap up, as these kids are getting more into technology and learning these computer programs and learning these engineering skills and getting all these certifications, why is it so important to not lose sight of the professional development side that all these employers are going to be looking for before they ever start their first day at a job?
And when you say like professional development side, you like interviewing, like
Yep.
the resume
Yep.
stuff,
Yeah.
um, because you can look really good on paper, but again, if you can't interact with people, I mean, even at Microsoft, I wanted to just because we had I could look at a resume and I could see like, wow, this is a solid resume for and be a great addition to our software engineering team. But then I could hop on the phone with the candidate and they excuse me, sorry, they couldn't hold a conversation. If you can't hold a conversation with me as a recruiter, there's no way I can put you in front of a hiring manager to interview. And if I can't put you in front of a hiring manager to interview, then how do I know also that you can collaborate with teams, right? That you're a team player, that you can work outside of your functional team, right? And collaborate with, a different team. Those are different things that we have to like think about. And so I would say I would, yes, have the tech, but also have the soft skills of being able to interview, being able to communicate, being able to network, being able to present. You want to be somebody that's well-rounded because those are things that we look for, and that's why I encourage like getting involved on whatever it is on campus, like. At high school, I remember I was a part of some student organizations there. I just told you I was a part of like National Honor Society, but being a part of those different communities also helps develop you professionally in ways that you wouldn't even think about because in college you do group interviews, even within tech you might do a panel interview, same concept. And
Yeah.
it's all preparing you for those things. So I would say just make sure that you don't neglect the other side, beef up both sides so that you can be somebody that is just exceptional all around.
That's it. I appreciate it. So again, we thank you so much for joining us. Recruiter at Moss Adams, all the way from Houston, Texas, Brie Olootu. Thank you so much
Thanks,
for joining us
Greg.
today.
You make me sound really cool.
Oh,
So
because you are
thanks,
really cool.
Greg.
All right, talk to you soon, buddy.
Thank you.
See ya.
Alrighty, bye.